ಬಂದಿದೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ, ಹಿರಿಯರೇ ಇತರ ರಾಜ ರಾಣಿ. ಹತ್ತೋಣ ನಾವು ಅವರ ನೆನಪಿನ ದೋಣಿ, ಕೇಳುತ್ತಾ ಖುಷಿ ಪಡೋಣ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ. ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಖುಷಿ ಪಡೋಣ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಖುಷಿ ಪಡೋಣ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿ. ಇದು ಹಿರಿಯರ ಕತೆ ಹಿರಿಯರ ಜೊತೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹಿರಿಯರ ವಾಣಿಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಇರಿ, ಖುಷಿಯಾಗಿರಿ.
Hello listeners, I am your KL Tanvi. Welcome you all to Anubhav, a joint project of National Institute of Social Defense, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India and Media for Community Foundation, implemented by Nightingale's Medical Trust. The project is conceived by Dr. R. Sridhar, Project Investigator, Alok Verma, Coordinators, Pooja Murada, Sai Sudha Kaushalya. Government of India has initiated Elderline toll-free number 14567. Elders or anyone on behalf of elders can call between morning 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for any questions or queries. Human brain is a marvel of evolution, shaping our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors while continuously adapting to new experiences. From early development to aging, the brain undergoes remarkable transformations. In this journey of discovery, Dr. Shilpa Rao, a distinguished expert in neuropathology, brings invaluable insights. She is a professor at NIMHANS, Bangalore, and holds the distinction of being the first person in India to earn a doctorate in medicine in neuropathology. A gold medalist in MD pathology from JIPMER, she has made significant contributions to neuroscience with 66 publications and 141 citations to her credit. She has presented multiple papers at WHO and has received numerous awards for her research. Her primary areas of interest include neuropathology and neuro-oncology, where she continues to advance her understanding of brain disorders. Now, let us hear from her how the brain development occurs in humans.
It is very nice to know how the human brain actually evolved from a small brain of mouse, and it has evolved so much so that we have attained this big size of human brain. But brain did not just start with animals. The evolution started much earlier. Before going into the topic, I'm sure all of us have a lot of questions. So these are the questions which usually come to everyone's mind, and that is what I've put up here. So is human brain the most evolved? How is human brain different from the others? Of course, all animals and birds, mammals, reptiles, all of them have brain. How is human brain different? What makes us so unique? And is human brain the largest? Is it most evolved? Is it the largest of all the brains? What makes us humans have intelligence, emotion, language? So these are some of the questions that I thought I can address in this next half an hour. Then if you still have some more questions, we can still address those also. So this is a very cute picture of how brain actually evolved to what we have right now. So we are talking about brains in the mouse, rat. That is something resembling what we see in humans. But then you should also remember that the nervous system itself, you all must be aware that within the brain there are what are called as neurons. So they are the most important cells because they bring about electrical signals, like whatever electrical signals you see in a computer that is required. Similarly, in the brain there are electrical signals which are firing every second. And such cells actually were present even in a bacteria. So in the bacteria, which is just a single cell organism, even within a bacteria, you have certain cells which actually are required for transmitting food. So the very basic requirement for a living being is that all of us need food. So bacteria, what it can do is it will take up local food. So that is a single cell, very simple system within a bacteria. Then what happened as the organisms evolved? Their requirement also became more and more. It couldn't just depend on a local food. It had to respond to touch. For example, if you have seen a jellyfish, you would have seen it in at least television. All of us would have seen jellyfish in a television. So what happened is that it has to respond to some danger. It cannot just sit quiet in one place, eat its food, be happy. So what happened? They developed a nerve net, which is similar to what we have in our brains, which are called as synapse. They're nothing but these neurons. They have a connection between each other. So when the network develops, signal from one cell can go into another cell. So there is a transmission of electrical signals, like transmission of electricity that happens. So there is transmission of electrical signals from one cell to the other cell. This need came to avoid threats. The first need was to eat. The second need that came as we evolved is to avoid threats. So whenever there is a danger, you need to run from the danger. That is applicable to all organisms. That is why this nerve net developed. So as again the evolution happened, this was not enough. The food was not coming to the organism. It had to actually go searching for the food. So when that happens, there is requirement of movement. You need to move. When you need to move, we need a balance for moving. We need everything to be symmetrical. By symmetrical, we mean right is almost similar to what is left. So for that, all the organisms started having a midline structure, and in the midline all these nerves started, or neurons started accumulating. They formed groups, and those are called as the ganglia, which are also present in our spinal cord. Okay, so first there was a single cell, then we had some neurons, then we had connections between the neurons, which was called as nerve net, which was to avoid threat. Then to sense and approach food, they developed ganglia, which resemble the spinal cord. Then as the need increased further, then developed this bigger brain. So what we started off with was a spinal cord. The spinal cord is what developed first, and then that actually gave rise to the brain, forebrain, that we all commonly refer to as brain. So even the spinal cord is very important, and the brain is also very important. So this is, in short, a very simple gist of how and why the brain has evolved in a particular fashion that we know. That brain forms very complex function. So this is just to give you a glimpse of different brains. We already said mouse and rat have the smallest brain. If we start off from there, we can see that the human brain is quite large. But does it mean that we have the largest brain? Is there any other animal that does have larger brain? Of course, there are animals which have larger brains. But when we say that humans have the large brain, it means that for the body weight that we have, proportionate to the body weight, human brain is quite huge. So for example, if you see here, these are all the monkeys, and they have somewhere like, in this is all in proportion to their body weight, 70 grams, 377 grams. Human brain, this is an average that is portrayed here, which is 1232. It varies somewhere between 1000 to 1500 grams. But then you can see here that elephants, especially the Indian elephant, has a heavy brain. But then you look at these neurons are the ones which are important. So you must have heard, or you yourself must be telling that that person has more gray matter, this person has more gray matter. So what, when you want to tell about being brainy, so what does gray matter actually contain? It contains neurons. So we need more neurons for more activity. It's not only for being intelligent, for any activity. Now I'm talking to you, my neurons are firing. I need to move around, my neurons will be firing. So those neurons are what are important, and you can see that they are much, much higher in human beings compared to any other animal. So coming to human brain itself, you will be very much astonished to know that if you take our entire body weight, brain typically weighs about only 2%. So I said somewhere around 1000 grams. So it will weigh around 2% of body weight, but it uses a lot of energy that we take, and a lot of oxygen is utilized by the brain. That is 20% of energy is actually utilized by our brain. That is how much it is working all the time. In comparison, if you see skin is just, but that is also an organ. Skin, if you take in your entire body, that will weigh twice as much as your brain itself. So if the brain is weighing 1,500, skin will weigh 3,000. Although the function of skin is much, much less when compared to what a brain does. That's why it utilizes maximum energy that is there in our body. And as already told, it is a very complex organ. It's quite fascinating to know about brain because all that we are doing is completely under the control of brain. If I'm able to do something, it's because of the cells in the brain. If I'm not able to do something, it's again because of some area of the brain that could be abnormal. So it is a complex uh, organ, and I'm not going to go too much into the complexities of the brain, but then I'll definitely tell you what brain does and how it does, what it does actually, how it controls all the functions of our body from very small things, which will not even be consciously thinking that if I'm moving this finger, I'm not consciously thinking which part of the brain is working. But then if you go into the details, you'll be astonished to know that there are so many areas of the brain that are involved to just make the single movement possible. So why human beings have the capacity to talk? Now I'm talking. None of the other animals or birds, none of them can talk, although few birds can mimic what you say. But we have this capacity to talk, to interact, to communicate, understand each other through language. Other than that, we also have certain special characteristics like we have self awareness. If I am in a society, I know how to behave. I have some inhibition. I have some control, but animals do not have such control. So that is also very specialized uh, part of what happens within our brain. And we can solve problems. We have a lot of cognitive functions. All of these are well developed in a human being. So if you compare a lot of brains through the evolution, this frontal part that is right in front, that part is much more developed in human beings when compared to other animals or the primate brain. So this part is what gives us all these unique attributes. So just to give you a overview of how brain looks and what are the parts, because if I'm using certain terminology, it becomes easier for you to understand what I'm telling. I'm sure all of you know it, but then just to recapitulate. So this is how a human brain looks, and this part, which is in orange or the brown color, this is called as the cerebrum. This is what actually constitutes majority of the brain. Then we also have a little brain here. This is called as cerebellum. This is somewhere in the posterior or the back aspect. And then we have a stem-like structure that is called as the brain stem. So this majority, the large area is cerebrum, the little one is the cerebellum, and what is connecting here is the brain stem. This brain stem will further connect to the spinal cord, which is there in the vertebra. So there's something called as neocortex, which has developed much more in human beings, which helps us have a lot of cognitive and mental skill. What do we mean by neocortex? What I told you, the outer covering, that is the mainly the frontal area that has developed more. And whatever is there in the other regions of the brain, what was earlier there in primates, those have gone inside, and what has developed over it, that is what is the neocortex. We have definitions for that, how we define neocortex, but in simple language, all these cortices which are there on the surface, they're all the neocortex, and they are what give us special functions. That is how a brain would look from outside. Now, if I cut the brain, I can cut the brain in different planes, but these are some of the sections which are taken from the brain. And these are what is showing you comparison between human and other brain. So what we do when we cut brain is we have certain dyes, like you dye your dress, there is dyeing of saris, you give different color. Similarly, we have certain chemicals which we use to dye certain areas of the brain. So whatever is colored blue or purple here, this is where the neurons will be, and that is the gray matter. Whatever is colored light, that is where the other cells will be. That is the white matter. So your neurons are here, and white matter is nothing but those connections which are also very important. Just neurons cannot function on their own. They need to relay information, and to relay information, we have what are called as white matter tracks. They're nothing like wires which take electricity from one part of the building to the other. Here they take from one part of brain to the other part. They help in communication. So that is the white matter. So we are talking all the time about neurons, neurons, neurons. Neurons are important, but now a lot of other cells are also gaining importance. And they are called as glial cells. They are basically the supporting cells. So they will all be in this white matter. Neurons will be in the gray matter, and glial cells will be in the white matter. So why am I giving so much importance to this? So we said, if you remember in a few slides earlier, we said that humans have more number of neurons than elephant, which has a bigger brain. So to accommodate more number of neurons, if you see the earlier ones, like this is a mouse. Mouse has a very flat brain. There are no curves like this. There are no indentations. There are no convolutions. Rabbit also has very smooth brain. But then as you go to human, you see that we have lot of convolutions. So what it does, how does it help us? These convolutions, these we call them as gyri and sulci, they help us have increased surface area. So if you have a paper like this, if you have a paper which is straight, you can have only this much surface area within the given space. But if I fold this paper, if I fold it like this, then I can accommodate more number of neurons. And that is what has happened with evolution. We have lot of convolutions or gyri and sulci, which help us accommodate more neurons, giving us more capacity. So that is why we have this kind of brain structure. The same thing develops. So the neurons, this is the infant brain and this is an adult brain. So development doesn't stop when we are born. Even after birth, the development will continue. These are all the neurons. Whatever you're seeing, something like a spider or these are all pyramid shaped. And these slender ones, they are the connections which are helping one neuron to communicate with the other. As this C and D here, these are from the infant brain here. And on the right side, what you're seeing are from the adult brain. So as you can see here, this adult brain has lot of connections. So the connections develop as we grow. And they're also influenced by our environment, what we are exposed to. That's why it said that when the child is growing very young, it is good to give a lot of exposure so that there is more connections that are developed. So you can see here, very less connections that are developed, and here you can see there are a lot of connections that are developed. So this is from a human brain. If you compare the connections and the neurons in human brain versus other animals, there is definitely a difference. So this on the left hand side of the screen, this is from human brain. All this dot, 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 dot that you're seeing, they're all neurons. So we have so many neurons in our brain. This is from a single area of the brain. It will be less than 1 millimeter area that we are looking at. So in that region, there are so many neurons that are always connecting, they are acting and they are releasing signals. So similarly, you will have in other animals also. This is from an elephant, and this particularly is not as well organized as what we are seeing in human brain. Anyway, don't bother much. I'm just trying to show you what is there within the brain, that it is so active and we are able to perform all our functions so well. So again, here, these are the neurons. They will actually be arranged in the form of a column. That is like, yeah, you have students standing in a line in class. If you're a class, some of you must be school teachers. So you'll tell them to make a line and stand. So your neurons in the brain, when they're developing, they are in the form of line. They form a very strict straight line. And when they develop, they start coming from bottom, then they start forming connections and reach the top. So there are several billions of neurons. It is so fascinating to know that there is no abnormality. So if you imagine, if one neuron or one layer of the neuron doesn't occupy its place, suppose there is a student in the class who does not occupy his place, it's something like that, but there will be not much difference. Here, if a neuron doesn't occupy its place, then the electrical activity is completely distorted. So there can be a lot of abnormality, but the architecture, the engineering of the brain is so marvelous that every neuron finds its particular place, finds its connections, functions so well throughout our life, every second of our life, and that is what this picture is actually telling you the story about. So we have seen outside how the brain looks. Inside, when we take a section, we give it some color, how neurons look, what do they do. But in the brain, if every region of the brain is looking similar, then it is very difficult for us to do different activities. I'm talking, I'm moving my hand, I'm looking at the camera. If we are talking to each other, if there is an interaction, I would also be listening to you. So we are able to do multiple things at the same time. So there must be certain regions of the brain which are specialized. For example, I'm specialized in neuropathology. Somebody else will be specialized in cardiology. So each one of us need different specialization so that we all work together. Similarly, in the brain, you can see this is very nicely put up here. There are different regions of the brain, just to give you an orientation, not to go into much detail. So this is the frontal part of the brain, that is the front, and this will be the posterior region of the brain. The cerebellum is somewhere down, and then you have the brainstem. I'll tell you only important areas of the brain so that it will make you understand which part of our brain is important to do what function. It is actually nice to know what happens within our body, right? So, okay. Now, within this region itself, there are different areas. We'll concentrate on important areas. So, this pink zone that we are seeing here, this is actually what controls all the movements of our body. You want to walk, you want to run, you want to eat, you want to have hand movement, you want to draw, everything is actually controlled by this thin strip of gray matter. And within this gray matter also, each part of our body is represented. For example, thumb is represented in this region, hand is represented in this region, leg is represented somewhere here, and here your now I'm talking, then I need to use a lot of muscles in the face. So all these are actually represented in this region. So every region of this thin strip is actually so important that it controls every movement of our body. Just behind that is again a thin strip which actually senses what we feel. For example, I'm touching a mouse here when I'm moving. I'm moving the mouse. I'm feeling the touch of the mouse. You are able to feel something and tell whether it's hot or cold. So all those sensations are actually represented in this part of the brain. You can also sense something without seeing it, right? Now I can see this and I can tell it's a mouse. I can see this and I can tell it's a computer. But if you ask me to close my eye and if you give me a coin, I'll be able to tell that it is a coin. So that is also possible because of this particular region of the brain. Okay, so that is how well structured our brain is and how well controlled the functions are. I'm talking so much continuously. Sorry. So I'm talking so much. So something should be controlling what I'm speaking also. So this area here, particularly in the frontal lobe, this is what is required for speaking. That is called as Broca's area. You don't have to remember the area, but then this is the area of the brain that is controlling how I am able to talk to you. Similarly, you are able to listen and understand what I am talking to you. So that particular function is actually controlled by an area called Wernicke's area here. So there's always a connection between this area, which is what helps me speak, and this area, which helps me perceive what somebody else is talking. So there will be an electrical circuit that is there between these areas. So now we have talked about how we do certain activities, that is a motor activity, how we can sense certain things, how I can talk, how you can perceive. You can also hear what I'm talking, right? Without hearing, you cannot understand what I'm talking. So this area here in the green is what is the hearing area. So whatever I'm talking is going through your ear, it's connecting to this particular region, which is in the temporal lobe of the brain. So this is particularly for hearing. Another green area here, most of us, if we see a person, if we become familiar, we are able to look at that person's face and able to recognize them. So that is also in a specialized area in the brain, and that is what is marked here in the green. So these are some of the important functions. Next, we also see a lot of things. Now to see through the eye, it's not just the eye that is forming the function. There is a connection between what we are seeing here and the most posterior part of the brain, that is in the occipital lobe, and this is very important for vision. What we see becomes perceived in the occipital lobe. We also do a lot of mathematics, calculation. Some of us are good in art, drawing. So there are different areas of the brain for that also. So this particular box in the white color, what is circle, this is actually important for mathematical calculation. It is important for drawing. It is important for dressing. It is important for a lot of artistic things. So like this, there is compartmentalization within the brain, and each region is given a specific function, and that will do its own function, but it is never separate. There is always a connection between these regions of the brain. So if I am reading something, I need vision, I need understanding, and if I need to repeat it to someone, I need my speech area. So all these will always be in continuous connectivity with each other. This is the main cerebral cortex that I told you. Then there is a little brain, that is the cerebellum. What does it do? If we are walking, although our motor area will actually help us do movements that are required for walking, we need to always balance. If I don't see also, I can balance myself and I can walk. So that basic coordination and balancing is done by this little brain here, that is the cerebellum. Then brainstem. Brainstem is very important. These are all functions which are required, but they are not life-threatening. But what is there in the brainstem is very important for us. We breathe, our heart rate is controlled. These are all involuntary. I don't have any control over what I'm doing. It is just happening subconsciously. I don't think about it. So those regions are actually present in the brainstem. So these are very brief overview of what happens within different areas of our brain. Now it has reached this particular stage where we are able to form or do such complex activities. Let's see how it actually developed. I'm not going to details of each and every function, but certain important senses that we have developed. So if you go back to evolution again, where we started, the earliest way of vision was a single eye patch. Like leech had a single eye patch which had photoreceptors. What do they do? If the leech is in this direction. It can just see what is there in front of it. That's all it has to do. There is nothing else that it needed at that point of time. So it was just like an eye patch. Then came the flatworm, which developed the eye cup. So now we have this eyeball, and around it we have a cup kind of a structure. So why did this eye cup come in? Because you need to concentrate certain light that is coming into the eye. You can't just let everything come, then there is no focus. You cannot see a large field of vision. So a eye cup developed. Then came into picture the compound eyes that all of us have. So we have a lens in front, so which when it is damaged, like it happens with cataract, they do surgery and replace the lens. So lens is very important because it helps us focus something which is far or something which is nearer. So lens developed, and to further concentrate the light that is falling into our eyes, we have developed a slit that is called as a pupil. It's also there in animals. It is there in cats, dogs. Cats have a narrow slit. We have a round slit, and it varies with different animals. It helps us concentrate the light better, and lens helps us to focus what we are seeing, be it a far vision or a near vision. Then, of course, we have developed a lot of specialized structures within the eye, like fovea. We have different areas of the eye itself connecting to different areas of the brain behind, and it helps us actually get a complete perception of what we are seeing. So it just started with a single eye patch. Imagine how much it has evolved just to meet the needs as the animals actually developed. Similarly, smell and taste also developed. So smell and taste, I wouldn't say are the best in human beings. As we all know, dogs have much more capacity to smell, and there are certain water animals like catfish which has taste receptors all over the body. So when we evolved, our need for smell actually reduced, but we have increased the taste sensation within us. So all this was basically for food. The animal or the organism needed to get food. So you need to get food. We all know that when it smells good, we get kind of our appetite increases. So the same thing happens with all the animals. And the other most important reason why smell actually develops is also to detect any danger.
Wow, can smell really be used to detect any danger? Stay tuned to know the answer. Until then, have a good day. Signing off, Kale Tanvi. Bye bye.